Hello and welcome to Calm the Pharm podcast, where pharmacy business meets legal wisdom, minus the headache. In each episode, we share practical legal tips and real-life examples to help you run your pharmacy with confidence. I'm your host, Sarah Stoddart. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome back to another episode of Calm the Pharm podcast. I hope that wherever and whenever you're listening to this, you're having a great day. Today, I'm going to talk about the right business structure and making sure you start out with the right structure when you go into business. Sometimes it's easy to just pick whatever structure is easiest at the time. However, it can have costly implications, both from a tax perspective, which obviously I'll leave to the accountants, but also having to restructure your business down the track can be a very expensive and time-consuming exercise. When pharmacists take the leap into business ownership, one of the most important early decisions is how their ownership interests will be structured. It's an important decision and, like I say, can impact on your tax and personal liabilities, your ability to raise and borrow funds, and how you sell or dispose of the business or your interest in the business in the future. For most, the options available are sole trader, a partnership, or a company structure, with the company structure often being the most common choice, whether it's a standalone company or whether it is a company in partnership. While a company has its advantages, though, it's not always the right fit for everyone. So here's what to consider. Firstly, understanding your options. So as a sole trader, you are operating the business in your own name. It's inexpensive and simple to set up, but you are then personally responsible at the get-go for all debts and liabilities and potentially exposed to considerable risk. Option 2, partnership. 2 or more people or entities sharing ownership and profits. Also a relatively straightforward structure, but each partner can be held responsible and often is held responsible for the actions and liabilities of the other. This is referred to as joint and several liability. Also, if you're entering into a partnership arrangement, it is very wise and prudent to ensure there is a partnership agreement in place. The third option is a company, so a separate legal entity that is registered with the Australian Securities and Investments Commission. It can own property, borrow money, sue or be sued in its own name. The owners are the shareholders and the business is run by the directors. So I like to say that it is the directors who drive the bus and it is the shareholders that sit on the bus but are essentially telling the bus driver where to go. Often the directors and the shareholders, though, are actually the same people, particularly when it comes to pharmacy business because of the restrictions on ownership. For pharmacies, your state and territory's pharmacy ownership legislation will influence which structures are permitted and how those structures are set up. So always consult your state requirements or seek advice in relation to those. So coming back to the company structure and thinking about why you would consider a company. Well, a company structure can offer limited liability because a company is a legal entity, so provided you don't go giving personal guarantees, it is separate from your own personal assets. Tax flexibility, which I'm not going to go into because it is the accountants and tax lawyers' domain, but in short, it is usually lower than the personal tax rates. That is, the company tax rate is often lower than the personal tax rate. And also, it's easy to expand. You can issue or sell shares to bring other people into the business later. If you do start out as a company with more than one shareholder, I do also recommend entering into a shareholders agreement. So neither a partnership agreement or a shareholders agreement should ever be overlooked. And there are other episodes on this podcast as to why that is the case. So that's some of the advantages. What are the trade-offs and risks? Well, running a company can be more complex than operating as a sole trader or a partnership. You need to consider your setup and ongoing fees. So there are registration fees payable on an annual basis, review fees, and possibly higher accounting costs. You need to consider director responsibilities. So the directors must comply with the Corporations Act, keep proper records, and act in the company's best interests. Failing to do so can result in pretty serious consequences. And personal guarantees. So directors are often asked to provide personal guarantees to third parties, such as your landlord, your bank, and perhaps suppliers as well. So the moment you do that, as I alluded to earlier, that exposes the personal assets of the director. So key considerations to take into account. 1, your ownership rules. What does your state or territory require? 2, what is your structure, your share structure within the company? So how many shares will the company issue? Who will hold them? What rights will be attached to them? And again, there are restrictions around this when it comes to pharmacy businesses. 3, directors' duties, so making sure you understand your legal obligations, including acting with care and due diligence, avoiding conflicts of interest, and preventing the company from trading insolvent. Thinking about your exit strategies, number 4, so how will you sell or transfer the business or the company in the future? If there's more than one shareholder, as I alluded to earlier, do you have a shareholders agreement in place? Financial planning. Have you spoken to your accountant about how profits, salaries, and dividends will be handled? And finally, if some experience, to help you model the tax implications and help with compliance. A lawyer to help you set up your structure, make sure it complies with the legal requirements, and to put the shareholders agreement or partnership agreement in place. And a business advisor perhaps to help align the structure with your growth plans. A company can offer protection, flexibility, and credibility, but only if it's the right fit for you. So if you're ready to start your pharmacy journey, this is where you need to start. And if you need help with that, you know where we are. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next week.